special workshop meeting of the Lake Lure Town Council with representatives, and it's a joint workshop really with Chimney Rock Village. We have representatives of Rutherford County here, representatives of NCDEQ, and representatives from our utilities board. Good session. We got a lot to cover, so I'm going to go ahead and let's do the invocation, pledge of allegiance, and then I'd like to kind of go around the table and even around the room and let everybody introduce themselves so we know who's there. So if everybody would please stand. Please bow your heads and pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings you bestow on our community. As we gather here in public service to our town and its citizens, we ask for your divine guidance and wisdom to help us govern effectively, to do what serves the greater good and best interest of our citizens, and to be good stewards and guardians of this beautiful place we call home. In your name we humbly ask these things. Amen. We'll say the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, please be seated. Get started and go around the table. I'm Kevin Cooley. I'm the mayor here of Lake Lure, and I'll go to my right first, and we'll go around that way.
Shannon Baldwin, Town Manager, Lake Lure.
I'm Steve Garrison, County Manager for Rutherford County.
Tim Hahn with the Regional Office in the DEQ Water Quality.
I'm Danny Searcy, Planner with Rutherford County.
John Bull, Town Council of Lake Lure. John Kilby, Town Council of Lake Lure.
William Morgan, Town Attorney for Lake Lure.
Jeffrey Brown, Brown Consultants.
I'm Keith Webb with McGill Associates, and I'm here with the Chief of Office.
Stephen Weber, Town Council of Lake Lure.
Peter O'Leary, Mayor of Chimney Rock Village.
Okay. We have folks in the audience. Why don't you all go ahead and I encourage you all to participate, even though they may not be sitting on here.
Robert Smith, the Brown Consultants.
Corey Knox.
Should I get on the phone to introduce ourselves as well?
Yes, in just a second we'll get right to you there.
Okay.
Dave DiOrio, Lake Lure Utility Board.
Dave Keenan, Lake Lure.
Jake Gillespie, McGill Associates.
Steve Duncan with Chimney Rock Administration.
Joyce Fair, Lake Lure Village Resort, Vice President.
Nathan Burke, Treasurer, Lake Lure Village. Wayne Hyatt, the Lake Lure Utilities Advisor.
Good, thank you. And now on the phone we have, go ahead.
Sure, this is Anita Robertson with the Division of Water Infrastructure.
Ken Poland, also with the Division of Water Infrastructure.
Susan Davis, the Division of Water Infrastructure. And our Division Director, Kim Colson, will be joining us in about 10-15 minutes.
Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot for joining us on the phone there. Hopefully you'll be able to hear what's going on, and if not, just please speak up. Let me just say a few words. Well, let's go ahead and adopt an agenda since this is an official meeting and we have to do that. We've I guess, presented for the benefit of our town council members a very brief agenda, one topic only, a low-pressure sewer system discussion. Does any one of our commissioners want to suggest any changes? We want to make a motion?
No changes. I make a motion we adopt the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Moore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, so we have the agenda, and our one and only topic this morning is our sewer system. And I appreciate, I truly do, everyone coming this morning. I think this has all the markings of a really productive session because I think we have all the right folks in the room to get something accomplished, and I hope we can do that before the meeting is out. We're here really to kind of discuss an issue, the issue being we are in the midst of moving forward on a really ambitious and critical public infrastructure project, and that is to replace our aged gravity sewer system that runs down the middle of our lake and our aged sewage treatment plant that is probably malfunctions more than it functions. with a new system that would involve, at least we believe, a low-pressure sewage collection system versus a gravity system, and a new sewage treatment plant likely to be constructed at a different site than the one that exists. And so this is a multi-million-dollar undertaking by the town of Lake Lure. It's probably the largest, most significant public works, public infrastructure project, I think, other than when the original dam was built, than the town has ever undertaken. So it's a very significant undertaking for us, and one that we are committed to doing, but also committed to doing right. And so one of the things that's we're on the planning stage right now, as I think most of you know, and we have submitted our new set of engineering reports to the North Carolina DEQ for their review and comment. And so as far as the work plan is concerned, that's kind of where we are in the process of developing the new engineering report that, you know, that kind of lays out, at least conceptually, the system that we're proposing to construct. It comes to light a number of different issues in relation to our existing system and then translating into our new system that we need to deal with. And one of those issues deals with areas that are currently outside of the town's jurisdiction, our boundaries, that involve collecting and sewage from customers that are outside of the town's jurisdiction, that are customers of our utility system. So one of these areas, of the two areas we have like that, it involves Chimney Rock Village. And dating back to days even, I've learned, before the village was incorporated, the sewer system reached up into the gorge and served both residential and commercial customers that are now in that jurisdiction. And so as we move forward with our sewer collection and treatment system project, we have a neighboring jurisdiction that is connected to that system by its own gravity sewer system, which runs, for the most part, either along or, in some cases, in the Rocky Broad River. And so two issues really arise from that situation as we look forward to our new system that we're designing, and that is, number one, that is a gravity system, not a pressurized system. The town will be constructing a pressurized system, and in order for customers to enter that system, they need to enter that system under pressure, low pressure, but under pressure. And so we need to deal with the connection of this system to the town's future low pressure system. So there is the question of how will that connection be made under pressure such that it can function effectively with our new proposed sewage collection system. The second issue clearly that's identified to us is with our own system, we have a severe infiltration problem that originates in our town from the system being submerged under our lake. And in most extreme case, 100 feet below the water surface. So tremendous amount of pressure acting on that sewer trunk line. And it's a 92-year-old cast iron trunk line that frankly that leaks. And we've been seeing a lot more lake water than sewage arriving in our sewer plant, which has caused havoc with the treatment system, and it's causing us to have to do what we're doing. That system, our system, has been, I guess, deemed to be in violation. In other words, it's out of violation. We need to do something about it, and there's something that we have to do about it is to get it out of the lake, and therefore to solve the infiltration problem and to make it available, I think, to a lot more of our residents than the current system is serving. With that in mind, infiltration has been a big issue, and as we look at the gravity system that now is connecting to the town from Chimney Rock Village, we grow concerned that that system may also have an infiltration problem because at least some portion of it physically runs in the river. There are other issues that have come to light. There may be, although no one is, that I know of is documented, that there may be cross connections into that system from drainage in that area. And so we raise the issue now, we hope early enough in the process, so that we and Chimney Rock Village and the county, which I really haven't explained yet, can work together in partnership as we develop our system, you know, to work out the issues, if there are, of infiltration in that gravity system. How will that system connect under pressure to ours? Now, the county becomes involved because back before the village was incorporated, the sewer line that had run up there and been, I suppose, well, there was a lack of ownership of this system that was developed, you know, back when our system was developed and a private entity put that system in, I understand. So the county, for better or for worse, has taken responsibility, or has been responsible for that section of the sewer as it runs up the gorge. And as Chimney Rock became incorporated as a jurisdiction, then the customers who had been in the unincorporated area of the county, and correct me, Steve, if I'm not getting this right, became Chimney Rock Village customers of the Lake Lure system, but they continued to get into the Lake Lure system via the collection line, the gravity line, that the counties continue to maintain. So we have kind of a hodgepodge of ownership, operation, management, as far as I can tell. Billings, that goes on, and so really all of the entities involved are here today, and I hope that we can all figure out a way as we go forward that you know, we have a seamless transition in a couple of years when our system comes online, and if there are things that need to get done to you know, pressurize or eliminate infiltration, that we're all working together to see that done. So that's to me sort of the backdrop of the main reason why this workshop's being conducted. But at the same time, Jeffrey, we agree there are some things going on in the engineering design world for our system that probably we could discuss later here, where we have the DEQ folks here, if we need further explanation. And that has to do with trying to estimate the volume of sewage that we're eventually going to have to treat when we put a new pressurized system in. And the difficulty here is that we have no firm flow data that we can rely on, because there's more infiltration than sewage. And so we need to find a way to accurately predict, realistically predict these flows, because it'll be around that flow that the future system gets designed, both the collection system and a treatment system. So we're working on a little different methodologies for predicting that flow. The good news is that we have good customer records of existing customers, which we've been billing. So we do know how much sewage we're billing for in those customers, much of it based on water meter data. You know, it's water usage that generates that. But there are quite a number of customers that we don't have water meter information on, and we bill by estimation, really. At a point, I think if we would have, and we're doing that now, we're trying to correlate the amount of sewage that we bill for in the system versus what we actually see at the plant, there is going to be a huge, there is a huge disparity, and that is the infiltration. So just know that we're working on that, and that's an important part of this. So, having said all that, you know, maybe as we get into this discussion, I mean, I'd like to hear some of the thoughts from Chimney Rock Village in terms of future serving your customers with the Lake Worth system. I'd like to hear, we've already had discussions, and I'd like to hear Steve Garrison or someone from the county, Danny, or discuss a little bit about your view of that sewer line and what the future looks like, and you know, what are some of the thoughts you have? So I don't know if
Let me just make a couple of comments. I'm not aware of any portion of that line that's actually in the river, so I just wanted to clarify that. It's actually either in the bank or up on piers. Possibly it could get water over it during a pretty major flood, but it's not in the river, you know, it's on the bank, basically. So just wanted to clarify that. And also just a little history. I don't know, you know, Steve may be able to shed light on it, but the line was put in either in the late 50s, early 60s, and I don't know who requested it, but I was always under the impression the county put it in. I don't know who funded it, but it was put in to serve, at that time, county residents and businesses that lived in the Chimney Rock area. And they privately hooked onto it, I suppose. Again, I don't know if there was grant money involved to get people to hook on, but the way it stands now, it's been maintained by the county, the main line, but any connection, as soon as you get off of it, every line that ties into it is private and maintained by the customers. In fact, I just had a question the other day from a business in Chimney Rock that's having some trouble, and they're going to have to dig up right on the edge of the highway to fix something, and they were asking me, you know, can somebody help us out? And I said, well, no, those lines are private. It's whoever it serves, you know. And that's historically how it's been handled. So,
could I ask if you've done any extensive smoke testing on that section of the line? You know, it seems like with the scenario you described, there's a lot of potential for people hooking on sort of in various ways, and you know, in terms of quality and how thorough a job they were doing, and then testing the joints of the main line itself. That could yield some information on where the INI is coming from. We've got a smoke testing device we can loan out, and the town may have something as well. I just want to offer that up and just see if anything can be done to that extent.
Jeffrey?
I haven't done any smoke testing in Chimney Rock, no, sir.
You guys have been the engineer here for
In Lake North.
2007.
07, 8, 7, 8.
You know of the town having conducted any smoke testing on that line?
I don't believe we've done any work on Robertson.
Not
confirming that.
Smoke testing, the only thing really we've ever done is the manhole inspections, and we have been all the way through, up through there, located them all, open top of manholes.
So not since 2007?
Tony did some smoke testing in the late 90s up there, because I was involved, but I saw them doing it and asked them what they were doing. See the smoke coming out of vent pipes and all. First time I'd ever seen that. It was interesting. But I know he conducted that, so I don't know if that would be in your records or not.
And Tony was our Public Works Director back at that time.
Mark and Chuck were here at that time, so they may
know
knowledge of it.
Right.
Of course, we can always get a hold of Tony and ask him if we need to know anything.
That may have been done by Rural Water Association. Lake Worth, I think, was or is a member of that, and they do that type of testing.
Well, we've talked about that, doing some evaluation of the line, and it's an unmetered flow as well. I mean,
It's unmetered.
We build a customer, so we don't really even know what's coming through the end of that.
Initially, again, back to kind of why we're here, just initials, that Lake Lure doesn't own that line. So we have traditionally, part of our work scope, working with even Tony in the past, we've stopped at the manhole there just as soon as you pass the old 64 bridge. And we have inspected, Robert's correct, because Robert and Don's probably done it a couple of times. Don Byers, your ORC. And just as part of the general service as a report to Diener, but not as a function, as a report of operation or maintenance for the town. It's just more of a let's go check this out while we're here type situation, so we can check a box for Diener at that time, to be honest.
Jeffrey, can you take a look at that map? We've got our manholes numbered. Can you tell us, you made reference to a manhole, is it indicated by those numbers?
I believe that if you go to 34,
Would be
to the right
34.5.
hand, excuse me?
34.5 is really the your last manhole that considered, it's the one right behind, you know, where I don't know if where the biker place used to be, the bar that's right there. There's a manhole right behind it. That's really where y'all distinguished it. From there.
Yeah, but I think that, Robert, I think that would be, the manhole not indicated on this drawing, because that's right there. So you go over the bridge where it says Chimney Cliffs. That manhole lives behind that little rock.
34-1, 34?
I think it's to the right of 34, Robert. Because I've been up there.
Does that color change indicate that?
I do.
It would be 34.
It's 34, right around 34, because that tax map block has changed a little bit, but it's more just past old 64 bridge.
That would be 34.
It would be.
That's behind that antique store right there, I believe.
Yeah, that 34-1 is probably right behind the Tiki, the Geneva, more than likely.
Yeah, but see, as soon as as what we have historically done, and Tony let us know this early on, Mr. Hennessy there, that, and I think about everyone has from here on up, is not Lake Lure. It's a stop there. And that's what we have traditionally done.
Well, you know, I think it is, if it hadn't been said, I'll say it, you know, it is the town of Lake Lure's intention to continue to serve the customers in Chimney Rock Village. I mean, so it's not to provide, you know, the wrong impression that we're somehow, you know, our system is when the new system goes in, you know, we don't have room for Chimney Rock Village. So please understand, our intent is to try to continue to serve not only the existing customers in Chimney Rock Village, but just like in our system, the economies of the system improve, the more customers we can serve. So, you know, our objective would be to serve as many and more customers up there, just as we're trying to expand the customer base in the town of Lake Lure. So understand that we're all trying to work towards that solution.
So that gets really to a lot of this conversation, and for our folks in Raleigh, the conversation is in terms of the SRF project, is that we do have, we're going to serve Chimney Rock Village, and but we're making a connection to the system. We're not sure how to, the system, who's it's permitted under, who's truly who has oversight on it now, and that's why Tim Heim with National Regional Office is here, just to hear this, maybe you can get his thoughts. But it's the impact of the I&I coming down that line, of which we're not quite sure the extent of that. We can do some work to figure that out, but ultimately it's going to have an impact on your low pressure system. So we're just trying to shine the light to Chimney Rock Village and the county and Diener. We're going to have a pump station here that's going to be accepting this flow, which has I&I in it, which brought up the question, which is our design questions ultimately, Ken Polich there, when we talk about our design flows at the sewer plant, in the window of what flows we have to treat. So we wanted to bring the folks that we believe who are involved with that line and make them aware, hey, we're going to come in now. At this point in the ER, we're not only going to capture that flow, we're going to measure that flow, and then someone's going to be responsible for the cost of that flow. So who is the flow coming down that line? We have end users and we have a line. So to your point, I'd love to hear more from the village and the county, and then from Tim here on how he can maybe help address the responsibility of that fund. Because that in effect will determine how we'll move forward with design of how we handle that flow, pump station. Is it ultimately going to be that line in the river? Are they going to pull the line out of the river? How are they going to handle, how is Chimney Rock Village and the county or whomever?
Can we put in a pump station that would be metered?
We are, yes sir. That's the plan now. Yes sir. You can.
So, I mean, from the county standpoint, this is sort of a sewer system out in sort of the remote reach. I get the impression from having discussed with you, this is not a sewer system that the county covets, would want to be a long-term owner custodian of it, but for better or for worse you are right now, if your intent is, as we move forward, to try to find a different arrangement for that system, maybe that has somewhat to do with how it's treated in terms of being part of the Lake War system or Chimney Rock system or something other than the counties, since you're not serving the unincorporated county with it anymore. So
it might be a point to make, Kevin, that we have other communities that come into this system as well. The resort, Roman Ball Resort, Lake Moore Village Resort. Is that the only?
We have a Hummingbird Cove entity which has several customers in it that they someone collect their own.
So there are others, Steve, just FYI, that there are other groups like that that are coming into the system too that we're addressing and having to deal with.
yeah,
Right now, those groups, are you planning on having one pump station, gravity fed to their pump station, and is it a pressurized system?
The Rumbling Ball, yes, they'll be, because they basically collect to the north end in the tip of the lake up there. Some of the other ones, right now, of course, we're just in the planning stage, but they potentially there may be a mixed bag, but of a collected system, or each user will go back to having their own pump station. It just depends on how we can get access to someone, because they're always little units, in and out of the lakes with their fingers, in and out. Right now, the big picture, folks, are Rumbling Ball and Chimney Rock Village. They're the big ones. The Rumbling Ball is easier to address. We have one entity we're really dealing with. There's a clear ownership path. We know it's coming to us. We know who's responsible for the flow that they're collecting. The situation Chimney Rock Village has is I believe, practically speaking, the residences, the businesses are creating the flow, but they're discharging to a line that's owned by the county. I think we need some clarity so that as we move forward, who's really the responsible entity we're dealing with. I think that it's just a point of clarity. That's why we're having this conversation. Diener's interested in now, unfortunately, I probably made them aware of it, but through our project, because, hey, we've got this system discharging to us. Whose system is it? We're not sure. So they need some clarity for some of our own permitting issues with the pump station. That's why we're here. And why Diener's here to some degree, and the folks in Raleigh are here as well at this point. So I'd love to hear again, going back to the county, their perspective on the line. You asked a great question. What's the county's long-term goal, vision for this sewer line?
We're thinking outhouses.
Madison County Health Department.
We think outhouses are underrated, and there's still the efficient way to do this. And so installation of outhouses is going to be a lot cheaper than a $500,000 lift pump station to tie into the Lake Water line. Anybody disagree? You know, for Danny and I, this has been a real learning opportunity. Mayor, thank you for the invite, and Shannon. They did us a pleasure to come down Monday and kind of gave us a little bit of heads up about some of the things that you're dealing with. I tend to want to do my homework, and just so as a full disclaimer, I've gone back and watched your videos. Your December 5th meeting, part 1 and part 2 are pretty interesting. I think it gave us a lot of clarity in what your direction is, and certainly don't envy you for the challenges that you have, recognizing not only the sewer system, but also the dam as well. You know, the good news is after you get all that straightened out and things get in place, you know, Lakeland will be set for decades. The county, I work with an exceptional board. They're always looking for those opportunities to engage with the communities, the towns, and try to figure out how do we build those greater relationships, those partnerships. And so that makes my job a lot easier, and I think Danny would agree as well. Our challenge has been is trying to understand the history. Danny's been on board with the county for how many years?
About 13 now.
13. So obviously all this predates us. So we've had to do a lot of research, do a lot of digging. I apologize, I didn't come here to offer you clarity. I came here to ask questions.
That's fine, that's good. That's good.
So for the county perspective is to gain some understanding of what your challenges are. This has been very helpful. Meeting on Monday was very helpful. Thank you both again. So I do appreciate you coming down to have a conversation with us. We want to see if there's some level of transparency and good engagement with the county and the two towns as we kind of work through this challenge together. I think for us, it's important to know exactly what we're facing. You know, the partnership obviously between Chimney Rock and for us to make those decisions. I think you said it best the other day, is that you see that as a leadership decision to be made by the town of Chimney Rock or the village of Chimney Rock in the county. And we recognize that. So I think that's good clarity for us. You know, this system, from what I can tell, you're talking at least 45 years of a line that's going in, and obviously the county's input was to ensure that the businesses and the homes had some ability to have access to a sewer system that tied into the Lake Lure system to better serve that community. Chimney Rock wasn't incorporated at the time, so that left the county with looking for those opportunities to figure out how to do that. And I'm not sure exactly what the initial grant sources were, but I know that at some point they did get additional grant funding to extend it up to Esmeralda End, and also I know Esmeralda had to pay some funds toward that as well. So at some point, Chimney Rock incorporated, 1991, 92. And so that was kind of critical. I know that looking at some correspondences between then County Manager John Condry and I don't know who the mayor was at that time, I apologize. There have been some communications going back and forth about the possibility of the town acquiring that line because obviously they're the beneficiary of it. So that's happened multiple times over the course of the years. The county has continued to provide maintenance of that line. I know that there's been some pretty dramatic storm events that have caused some damages. I think there's probably been some securement of FEMA monies possibly at times to make some of those repairs. Other times it's come from the county. County, as far as DEQ, you guys did permit it. You do have your documents for that, and we're glad to share those with you, your documents with you. I'm teasing.
No, well, we'd be happy to have them. At least in the regional office, I'm not sure it's back that far.
So we understand too that addressing comments about unregulated system is permitted through DEQ. It's a system with less than 200,000 gallons, however they ratios it. I hate to put the terms of human waste in terms of gallons, but it's whatever that ratio is, it's 200,000. So below that threshold is why it looks a little differently and probably is coded a little differently or seen a little differently. So really for us, for Danny and I both, really we're here to listen, to hear, to see what challenges you're facing. At the end of the day, we've got to figure this out together, all of us figuring out how do we best get that system connected to the Lake Lure, addressing some of the concerns that you had here as well. The one thing I did have a question for you. You mentioned you continue to say I, and I've heard that in the videos as well. So if the system, if the Chimney Rock line, once it gets into the Lake Lure, so where does it go from there? Just straight into the system, or how does that work?
It's in the system at that point. I mean, as soon as you discharge into the manhole, it's in the system. And then right
So do you have
now,
a place where it collects that at some point, separately before it goes to your plant?
you're there. You've entered the pipe, which runs down the bottom of this lake here, and then eventually makes its way underneath the dam
Okay.
to a pump station, which then carries it to the sewer.
So it's not metered right now?
George, everybody else,
Yeah, it's not metered.
All the
So
figures.
we don't know, we really don't have the data we need, to determine, okay, is the amount coming out of that pipe into our system what we would expect from 40 commercial customers and 20
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is
residential
100
customers.
customers, I hear 40 to 60.
Well, it's 60. I just counted them. Actually, I have, and I didn't bring enough for everybody, but there's a few of these. Here is the list of customers that, so we can
Awesome.
give that to you. There are your customers. Yep, and that's all the Chimney Rock customers. There's a couple of copies there.
Can I get my Shannon?
Yeah. So if you look at the table that we just printed out, these are coming out of our utility billing system. So I think they're fairly accurate, and at least these are the people we're billing. I'm not sure, maybe we may not be billing, I don't know. But there are obviously twice as many commercial customers, because this basically is serving the village commercial district, as there are residential customers. So I counted on here, and you can count on, I think there were 42 lines of commercial customers and 20 lines of residential customers. So that's what comes down that pipe.
Peter, at one time did Mike Keys, didn't he kind of, am I remembering he kind of did the maintenance and stuff like?
Not on the sewer,
Not on the
just
sewer.
on the water system.
On the water system, okay, gotcha.
So the sewer's the main line has always been maintained by the county whenever something happened. Like at the flood of '96, we had some major damage to the line, and that might have been when they got some FEMA, I'm sure they got FEMA money, but they actually repaired some sections of the line. Yeah, Keith was involved in that. But every private connection, we've had situations where people have had to do some extensive work, and it's individual property owner hires a plumber or whoever and does the work.
But they don't have to get a tap fee, or do they? They don't? I guess they don't.
They do. They have to require, there's engineering required on the tap, have to have some oversight.
They pay that tap fee to the county?
Yeah, currently they do. So there's some ownership. I like how the mayor kind of set the stage, and like how Steve kind of came for information gathering. So I don't know how much we can help clarify, but just from an operational perspective, the couple that I can recall was the developments that were built before the recession. There was some engineering required. There was a tap fee. Just having so there shouldn't be a scenario like you guys kind of painting that you would just picture the Wild West, people just coming and tying in and doing what they want to do. As far as the storm sewer, and I echo Mayor Leary's comments. Not aware of any particular storm sewer being tied in. I appreciate Tim's offer for smoke testing. I think that's probably a good step to take in planning on how we move forward. But I too am not aware of anything actually in the river. Worst case scenario, there's some in the bank of the river that would have to be a pretty good flood stage before it is actually impacted.
That kind of led to my question too, because you obviously seem to be pretty clear that there's some INI coming in. How do we know that?
I think in the past, I mean, this is all kind of a hearsay kind of thing, but there was a plug in the line at some point. Our public works guys were up there kind of noting the flow. I think it came after a pretty significant storm event, and their observation and not measurement was that there was a significant amount of rather clear water flowing through that pipe, and substantially more than you would expect from a domestic sewage flow.
So they were able to observe that coming out of that line?
That was the most recent one.
I guess that's why I was curious about where does it end up?
In a manhole, that they were observing through a manhole.
What's the elevation of these manholes in the riverbed or on the bank?
Those manholes are about 5 or 6 feet above the normal water level.
So we've had 3 storms this year that have gone above that, and I'm sure have covered the manholes, which has probably added a lot to it unless they're sealed on top. And I was thinking about from the water quality aspect, I wonder what type of assessment's been done on these manholes and the structures. We're showing 34 of them up and down that riverbank based on those storms. And somebody mentioned a while ago that it's now been extended to the Esmeralda, which is not on here, was a new manhole added at that point.
They come under pressure.
That's a pressurized system.
So Esmeralda is served with a pump station and a force main that comes down
They probably want you up to
64 and 74 and ties into the upper manhole.
I'm sorry.
Sort of as background, I was involved with, the county asked me after the 96 flood, there was a significant amount of the system that was in the river that was a number of breaks. So for a short period of time, there was basically no sewer service. So we assisted the county at that point, because the county is the owner, to go in and get some improvements made to where those sections of the line have been broken. And those have all been made and put in service. And as Peter said, most of those are over in the bank of the river. And there's big concrete piers were poured to reinforce those so they wouldn't break in the future. And the starting point of the sewer system improvements that we did is the manhole behind Geneva Motorsport. And that was always sort of deemed at that time that that was the demarcation point between the Lake Lure system and the county system. Chimney Rock asked me to be here because there's a part of some actions that happened after the 96 flood. At that time, there was a private water system that served Chimney Rock Village at the time that was owned by a private individual. And the same disruption to the sewer system created some disruption of the water system. And Chimney Rock Village at the time decided, after some evaluation, it was in their best interest to purchase the water system, which they've done. And they are now they own the water system, and they have an agreement with Lake Lure Lake Lure maintains that system, but it's a Chimney Rock system. So when this discussion came up, Peter and Steve Duncan and I met to discuss, we've got this wonderful system that is owned by the county, and Steve wants to keep it forever, which we know is not the case. Danny doesn't want to keep it.
Let's get some nice steam on that.
So our discussions at Chimney Rock level is, one of the alternatives would be with Chimney Rock Village, should they become the proud owner of this wonderful system. But the $1 million answer here is that Chimney Rock or Lake Lure is making major changes to your collection system. So how will the owner of the sewer system, whether it's Rutherford County or Chimney Rock or a third party, fund and build the changes to the infrastructure to tie into your system, and to ensure that however that's tied in, that the system that Lake Lure is building from the Geneva out can accept that flow. And I think that's what Jeffrey's question is about. How does that section get sized for what flows are coming from the, not only Chimney Rock Village as incorporated, but the current and even potential service area up the river. So that's why I'm here, is to help them get some guidance, because it's a big item if the county or Chimney Rock is going to be responsible to build this pump station and they have to fund it. Where do we find that funding? Who is the proud owner of that funding and secures the debt for that funding? And is that funding just for the pump station, or is it for improvements to the collection system? So that's sort of the bottom line.
That's all the moving parts.
That's it. Keith says it very well. That's where we're really coming from, is that pump station piece and the funding of it, who will own and maintain that.
Keith, how does that Chimney Rock, so the Esmeralda, how does it tie into the gravity system?
There is a pump station at Esmeralda and a small diameter force main that comes down the road and ties into the last manhole up near where Duncan's barbecue
Punches in there, it becomes gravity.
Does it come down in the road, Keith?
It's in the shoulder of the road.
It's in the shoulder of the road.
How do you bill Esmeralda based on some water data they send you?
No, because there's no, I'm looking at I have another spreadsheet I didn't hand out, which are actually, I've asked our utilities bill coordinator to put together the flow data from that, which I'm going to give to you.
Right.
And I just looked at Esmeralda, and it says not metered. So what we do, I've asked, well, then how in the heck do we bill them? And what they've done is they take a similar establishment. In that case, it's an inn with so many rooms in a restaurant, and correlate it to a customer we do have that's a similar, and then we do a flat rate on them, and we bill them every other, we bill bi-monthly, so we give them a flat rate. So to be honest, we haven't the slightest idea how much sewage comes out of that facility. But we send them a bill every 2 months and they pay it, that's kind of where we are.
5,000 or 10,000?
I don't think that, because there's no flow data, that's not in here, Stephen.
No, but that's what we used to do, flat rates.
Yeah, flat rates, so many gallons.
Category of
Yeah.
like 2,500 to 5,000 for.
Yeah, there are, I think there are 3 or 4 categories we have for commercial. There's a small, medium, large, and extra large. Sounds like a clothing outlet. And I think there's also even an extra large, or a jumbo. A jumbo. I think we only have one or 2 of those, and they're in the town of Lake Lure. I think one of them is the Lake Lure Inn is a jumbo customer or something, I don't know.
Yeah, commercial, double X large.
Double X large, right.
I think I'm offended, I'm not sure.
Back to that outhouse.
Where do you think we got the term from?
Mayor, to really address the situation, and this is my opinion, hopefully speaking for Chimney Rock, is that as you all move through this planning process, if the monies for making these improvements can be included in whatever funding has been done by DWI, I think that would be appropriate. Because somebody's got to find out how to fund and build this. Whoever the owner is a different story.
Well, let's discuss that a little bit, because that some of that is known. There's clarity to some of that. The clarity is that back when the town was going to build, own, and operate this so-called Green Line system, which was a massive master pump station with booster stations, pumpings, our contaminated lake water 20-some miles down the road to the Spindale wastewater plant. That was the original plan. We obtained SRF loan funding for that project, and it was in the order of $13 million or so, give or take. And it is really a terrific funding tool, because it carries 0 interest, and the period, I think, is 30-year payback period, and there is a $500,000 principal forgiveness if we implement the project the way we said. And so it's just it was a terrific deal for the town to fund the thing. And so when we decided that was not the right option for the town, we pulled the plug on it and said, no, now we have to deal with our collection system. We went back to the SRF folks and said, this is our new solution, and it will take care of not only the treatment side of it, but the infiltration side, which is what's really been the underlying problem with the treatment. You can do this for a number that looks similar, we think, to what you've given us in terms of the loan, which we have, I think we had 12 of the 13 million left on it, I think, something like that.
Something like that.
We had spent $1 million, unfortunately, on engineering of a system that's not going to get built. But anyway, SRF agreed and has offered us now the use of that same funding mechanism for our new system. Now the problem, or it's a problem, but the issue is, as you would imagine, a funding entity is only going to fund assets that you own. And so, am I correct in this?
Yes.
And so it's saying, you know what, we're not going to give the town, we're not allow the town to use this money for assets that are outside of the system that we're funding. And so you can see where that goes in terms of up into somebody else's collection or pumping or, system. So there's an ownership, there's somewhat of an ownership issue here.
Shannon, if I can go ahead and break in here just for a second, just so you can get some clarity for the funding people. Most of the things that you said are correct. A couple of things that needed to be corrected are, when this project was funded, it was scored and prioritized as a rehab project. So we need to be very careful and make sure that it continues to be a rehab project and not an expansion in that you're trying to grow the system or increase your treatment capabilities.
Absolutely.
I realize with the I&I issues contributing to the flow that you currently have, it's hard to determine how much actual sewer you need to treat because it was so diluted. And we are willing to work with you in figuring out how to come up with an accurate number, but it can't necessarily grow and incorporate new areas. Now, you already are treating the Chimney Rock flow, so we are willing to allow you to design the system to handle that flow, whatever it currently is, as well as the rumbling bottle connection. That should be sized according to what it currently is. And if you decide to put a pump station there and have Lake Lure own that pump station before that flows up in, that's fine with us because they've already taken on the responsibility of providing that treatment. Going into Chimney Rock, however, we would not be able to participate in.
Which is what I believe. This is Jeffrey again. Is that Anita?
This is Anita.
Thank you, Anita, for the clarity.
Sure.
And I believe that's how we understand it, so thank you. Which is in line with what the mayor just said.
Unless town of Lake Lure owns that pump station.
That's correct. We would own the pump station.
Right, if they fund it.
If they fund it, we own it. I understand.
We have to.
The pump station, not
The pump station, not the line.
Yes, the pump station.
So that's a situation on the current funding.
I want to add maybe where we kind of sobered up on the Green Line project is when Spindale said, we're happy to treat your sewage, but if you want us to treat lake water, you're going to pay a premium, it's going to be metered, and so the cost is going to be very large. And then we begin to scratch our heads, so there's got to be a better solution than sending them water that doesn't need to be treated anyway. And then the state helped us with some motivational type correspondence.
I think that's important to everybody to know. Everybody does know, I think, but it's a mandate. It's not an option. To do this, we don't have a choice.
So if we owned the pump station, we had it metered, we could take a similar approach in that we could charge by the gallon and not get into design anything above the pump station.
Well, that's absolutely correct. That would be the approach we're at now, is that the pump station would be designed and then based off of a flow number we can get to, but it'd be metered. So now, whichever entity then gets invoiced, the end user or whoever they, county, Chimney Rock Village works out, but then they pay for their item.
That would kind of reinforce my question about maybe doing an ion flow study from the point where the pump station would be put in upstream into Chimney Rock, because you'll identify and potentially eliminate defects where you're getting water in that you'd have to pay for that doesn't need to be treated, and you'd also get a more realistic number to design the pump station to the correct size.
Absolutely.
And really,
Sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing. As far as the Chimney Rock system, whether it's owned by Rutherford County or Chimney Rock, and depending on what you guys decide to do or who ultimately has ownership, we are able to, if they decide to come in and want to do their own low pressure treatment system, they can apply for funding with us as well. It's just whoever the owner of the infrastructure is who has to apply for funding.
Correct.
And just to kind of hit on that ownership point again, from a regional perspective, that's a lot of what we care about and need to know is who owns it, and just for the simple fact of when we come out and do inspections, who do we send the letter to if you've got a problem, who do we let know, and then who's going to do the operations and maintenance. And you know, and I'm not a finance person, so I'm largely ignorant of that component, but it sounds like you've got a method with the water system that could potentially work here, where the Chimney Rock owns this component of the sewer, but Lake Lure helps them with the repairs. I mean, we would be fine with that.
And that's discussions that Chimney Rock and the county have to have. This meeting really is the sort of the precursor to hear what you all are doing. But certainly, and I've talked to both the county and Chimney Rock, that's where we are headed, is for these two parties to get together and decide what is the best mechanism for ownership, and realize exactly what Anita said, that once we clarify that ownership, then it opens the avenue to put in an application for funding to make improvements to the system. And part of that application for funding would probably be some type of sewer evaluation of the flow monitoring and I&I work to justify that application to them. So it's not that nobody wants to do that, but it has to be done at the appropriate time, and it's done for a reason. One reason will be to at some point reduce the sewer bill to Lake Lure.
Yeah, and I see everything in terms of, you know, me doing it or somebody doing inspections 5 years from now, and then we got a problem, how are we going to fix it, that kind of stuff. So that can be in the weeds a little bit.
I think one of the issues looming out there, and as it relates to this discussion about who's going to own it, and then how's it going to get funded, how's somebody going to pay for it? And I say that because right now, the customers of that system, which is where the income comes to, is the town of Lake Lure. And so, unfortunately, Steve, in the county, you don't have an income source right now, you know, that supports the operation, maintenance of that system. It's a gravity system, but there's still costs associated. Right now, all the customer revenue flows into the town of Lake Lure. And I get, you know, the argument is because we treat it, you know, eventually, and we have to convey it from wherever you drop it off, all the way, which is at the outer reaches of our system, all the way to our treatment plant and then deal with it. So get that, but they're actually Lake Lure customers. So I'm envisioning a time when, if this system were to go in a direction you're kind of heading in, and you apply over here for funding, you're going to have to tell the funding agency how you're going to pay for that. And if you don't own the customers, if they're not Chimney Rock Village customers, there's no income stream to pay for this. And so that's all, I think, part and parcel to that is determining, okay, whichever way you go, it will affect the customer base, both from our standpoint, not from the flow, it will serve the customers, but just from the billing, you know, the financial thing. And then if we were to put, which sounds like we are, a meter up there where the system connects to, we wouldn't, I assume, we wouldn't send bills to those individual customers anymore. We would send a bill to the owner operator of that system that's plugged into our system, and it would just be based on the numbers
I
of
think,
gallons.
I think you're correct. I mean, as we move forward, whoever the owner is, instead of you sending out 62 sewer bills, you'll send out one. And that entity will then some way collect that sewer revenue. They may collect it through Chimney Rock, Lake Wood, because you do the billing for the water. But the water will come back to the owner of the sewer system. And that entity would set the sewer rates to amortize the debt and pay the annual upkeep and maintenance of the system, pay for the sewer treatment, and Danny and I had this discussion, actually begin a capital improvements fund that's not existed right now. So we need a reserve fund. So the customer will still pay. They're going to see potentially a larger bill, but if it stays like it is, they're probably going to see a larger bill, because I assume Lake Lure will probably increase your rates to amortize the $12 million of debt that you're going to have.
And those are outside those.
Right.
It seems like that.
Yes, sir, it does.
We had to do a fairly significant rate increase back when we obtained that SRF funding, as I recall. And it was in order to satisfy, the fund requirements. And since we've only had to tap a small portion, which is what we pay debt service on, the rates are now higher. So we as the town has some room in there, but it doesn't appear that that's going to be a sufficient rate base with the current level of customers, Jeffrey?
Current level of
to support
customers,
that, yeah.
that's correct.
And that's why, while we understand the limitations on the funding vehicle of not expanding our system, from the town standpoint, in order to make our system more economically viable, I would say, in the future, we have to look at how can we expand the customer base here, because a majority, I would say, of our town properties, I would think more than half, are currently not on our sewer system, and they're obviously then using septic systems. And
way more than
we'd like to see a lot less septic systems, particularly in the areas around our lake, which drain down rapid topography-wise into that basin. We think there's an economic benefit of putting them on a system in the future, and an environmental benefit of getting them out of their septic tanks and into a controlled system. So, we're trying to balance all that as we move forward, and not just operate in a vacuum with our customer base.
This might be an unfair question, but do you foresee the property owners with septic going for that idea?
There's the obvious argument. Why would I submit to a utility bill every month? And I don't know. I mean, so maybe if my septic tank is 40 years old and it doesn't, my drain doesn't drain like it used to, and if I call in a septic tank company, they're going to tell me there's a $10,000 or $20,000 bill to replace the tank in the drain field, maybe I will. The other really significant issue here isn't, and it's not just undeveloped lots, it's developed properties as well. The septic permit limits the size of your residence in terms of bedrooms, or if you're a commercial business, so it would, if you had a lot or a house, and it kind of unleashes the potential of the land, once you're on a sewer. And so I think that is going to be a significant opportunity for the town as the town develops, or as people realize, gosh, if I get on the sewer here and start paying at least a reserve fee or something, I'm going to be able to build a 4-bedroom house or a 5-bedroom house someday on this lot. So I think that's a big point.
Yeah, and I think too, the community, I've just seen the changes the time I've been here. It's a real conscience environmentally It really is, and the leadership, they're very conscious, and so there's a lot of buy-in to the folks, specifically who are around the waterways that feed the lake and around the lake, and they have a real good understanding that, you know, at some point in time, you know, these old septic systems, even if I have them that's 50 years old, it's just unfunctional, and I'm probably doing more damage to my own environment than it's worth. And we've heard that feedback from some of the folks already, that I think there's that conscience is there.
Okay, that's great to hear, and I mean, you know, there may be, and it sounds like maybe it's already under control, but the regional office may have some ability to come down and help do like an educational component at a public meeting. I'm shooting from the hip a little bit there, check.
Oh, I got you right in there, you're hooked. I got you.
It wouldn't be me, I'm terrible at that stuff, but we have other people that are really good at communicating with the.
H-I-E. You've written there about 4 times on my notes already.
Yeah, so, you know, despite the reputation, we like to be helpful as well as the other things we do, so.
We do appreciate you.
Well, I think that we've kind of gotten the issues on the table, and if there is clarity, it's clarity on what the issues are, maybe, what needs to get resolved, what needs to get done. Anybody else want to weigh in on this discussion? It's been good, welcome. If not, maybe we can kind of look at what our action items will be going forward. Shannon?
I guess there is some urgency to these. We have to be aware of
I was
that.
curious, what's your timeframe? What are you looking at as far as when you anticipate securing funding, and maybe that's already part of the place based on prior conversations? So what's your timeframe for actual boots on the ground
Jeffrey,
construction?
you're the keeper of the schedule.
I'm the keeper of the schedule. I believe we have about a year, and Ken Poley's on the line too. I think our submittal for design is about a year from now. Ken, are you there? I believe you.
Yeah, we're here, sorry, we're looking at each other.
Actually, yeah, this is Kim. Jeffrey, that is something we would have to discuss, because at this point, our official milestone dates for the project are basically the old and good dates. So one of the things
We did, yeah. We did.
You're right.
I don't have that right in front of me.
Yeah, I think,
you're right.
yeah.
I'm fine. We actually did do that. You're right. And I think the planned specs are going to be coming in like in the summer or the fall, something like that.
It's just about a year. I think it's the last day, December 19th. Yeah. We pushed it out from October to December.
Here it is.
Okay.
I got it.
He's got it.
I got the letter.
He
here.
has just the letter.
I've got the letter.
Okay, good.
So.
Sorry, we did not grab that.
I think the proposed date is actually what's been agreed. I have a table that says proposed, but I think it's what we agreed to. So the revised engineering report submittal was December 3rd. It went in a little bit late, but that's when the deadline for that milestone was. Engineering report approval, May 1st of 2019. The bid and design package submittal, which would be the end result of the design phase, is November 1st of 2019. And then you have until March for the approval of the bid and design package, March of 2020. And then in July 1st would be the advertisement for bids, and the execution of the construction contract, August 3rd of 2020.
Well, I was off for Monday. I thought Ken, I thought you and I moved that November of 19 to December of 19, but it's okay. I can get you offline.
That's the latest I have.
Well, the reason I ask, I'm very curious while we have the water infrastructure people on the line, DEQ.
It's the sewer infrastructure.
You have on I heard water infrastructure, I'm sorry. Well, it doesn't matter. So I know that we've been successful in working with Cliffside Sanitary District to get a couple of different grants to kind of evaluate and look at asset inventory down there, but also regionalization merger, 2 different grants. And so I'm curious, I'm asking that time frame because I'm curious. Obviously, there's a lot, most of this is stuff that needs to be inventory assessment. So what are the opportunities potentially out there for us to submit something that might be considered for the Chimney Rock line?
Our applications for asset inventory and assessment and emergency reutilization are in the fall, when we offer those grants. So the next one would be next September, October of 2019.
Also, just want to confirm that straight piping is still illegal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Madison County raises its head.
We're going to offend me in a minute.
Getting close to the line with some of these jokes.
There's a pipe used for the moonshine.
What's the old saying? You got to laugh or you'll cry.
Yeah. It'd be funnier if it went like probably.
So I have a question. We were talking about funding and stuff. In going through the ER, and looking at the different tables and the estimated costs, I see that the costs have gone up from the original loan amount. And we kind of have a question in the ER. It doesn't specify where that additional funding is coming from. It's listed in there, but there's no label. Do you guys have plans on applying for additional money from us or from different entities?
Yes, that's a good question. In the cover letter, my conversations with Mr. Poland, that we're well aware that there is a somewhat of differential in there, and the differential isn't identified as who is funding that because, and this is somewhat outside the world of the Chimney Rock Village conversation now, but we're trying to, from what we understand, is, again, you clarified earlier, town owns the asset, then the funding through SRF would be available. How you would make that available is the question. Do we reapply or do you expand that existing loan with this? And Ken and I have talked about this several times. There may be some room, what room you have not determined to me yet, but there may be some room on expanding that existing loan to accommodate a portion thereof, a greater portion thereof, of the project cost. Or do we have to submit, go through the process of submitting an application to you?
So we've had a couple of projects that have needed substantial amounts of increased loan funding. And this project, I think, would fall in that same category. We're usually able to increase about 10% without a whole lot of additional paperwork.
Right.
But this is doubling the cost. So it will require us to go back to our funding authority and ask for the additional funds. So our recommendation to you would be that for the spring round, which is coming up in April, we haven't necessarily advertised the deadlines yet, but that will be forthcoming the next 2 weeks or so. We would need you to apply for the additional funding that's needed.
Yeah, because if you look at the budget, the way it's broken out, Anita, is that the cost increase, which includes the Chimney Rock piece of this puzzle, the pump station there, and we have a large cost in the Rumbling Ball pump stations, and then the pump stations around town. Those if you take those, because those particular costs are what's really driving this increase. And that was a lot of the conversation here was about who owns those, all the pump stations, and then particular to this conversation today, who's going to own the Chimney Rock pump station? So who's going to fund it?
Right.
To me, that, for me personally, that's it in a nutshell as far as our project goes forward. We can supply, if Chimney Rock ends up owning it and they're gonna fund it, then we'd be happy to work with their engineer on the design parameters to our system. No problem. At that point, they pay for it. So then my answer to you is, I don't need the money for that pump station anymore. So there's some moving parts in here to which we're trying to get some basic things knocked out so that I can come to you and answer totally what that funding may really need to be ultimately from you, Anita.
Okay.
Okay? It's a very fair question that you're asking. So we can have a more detailed conversation, I think, without this whole group here. They're here focused on Chimney Rock, but it does help clarify what I'm asking Chimney Rock or the folks around the table. Who's going to own it? Because that determines who's going to fund it. That has a major impact on my funding to budget to you.
Okay. So as far as we're concerned, and what would be eligible for our funding, I'm looking at Tim. Sorry, Tim Coles has joined us, and I'm looking at him as I'm talking. Because you all had already committed to treating all of this, we're fine with those pump stations being included in the loan. Now, how you all decide to end up paying for it is up to you.
Right.
We're fine with that being included in this project.
Okay.
One other thing that I wanted to point out, so when we initially did the ER for this project and it was the Green Line going to Spindale, there was discussion and request for it to be a 30-year term loan. And we had talked about it and wanted more information, but now it is switched. There's certain criteria for that to be able to happen. In that the infrastructure has to be shown to last 30 years in order for the term to be set that long, and that determination is made by the LGC with us providing information to them showing that it would be eligible for that long of a term. With this turning into a low pressure sewer system, we have concerns that it won't, and the wastewater treatment plant, right? We have concerns that it won't qualify for that long of a term anymore and would be a 20-year loan. That being the case, have you all explored other funding opportunities that could offer a longer term? And specifically, I'm talking about the USDA. They do offer 40-year term loans. Have y'all explored that at all?
Well, no, because you just dropped a bomb on the room here, Anita, because that's the first time I've heard that, frankly. Okay?
Okay.
What we understood was that the loan was in place even with the change. So again, I think we may have to have further conversation. But
I'm sorry, I'm looking around at our room too and going and looking at came in with Ken, and I know that we were asking for a 30-year, but then the project changed, which was the issue.
But
so that's why we're bringing it up so that we're all aware that since the project changed, it affects the term.
Well, I'm just going to say what I think that this is news to me and the mayor. First time I've heard this. So I think that we're going to have to go back then and understand. I think we have this conversation further. I don't think this is an appropriate time because you just that's new news.
I said we don't actually set the term. As Anita indicated, we advise the local government commission and they actually establish the term. So terms are never established absolute until you go through that local government commission process.
Again, thank you for sharing that, but once again, I think that we need to have this conversation. I need to do a little homework, and then we have to follow up on this conversation, because this is new news to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, and I would include the local government commission.
Well, I think we did last time to get the 30. So, and so that's what we'll do. We'll get our homework done and call them and include you, Kim, and Anita, and Ken, and McCall. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, as we kind of wrap up here, getting back over to what would the action items, there's one right there. It's a call. Get ready to make a call to LGC and figure out what the options are, and try to make a case that the system that we're now proposing has similar life span characteristics as the one that we got approved. Both were pumping systems. I don't know. So we'll go further, and that's an important action item for us. The other action item that I think I heard was that we were going to do some upstream, I guess from our system, evaluation, someone was, of the existing collection system up there.
It sounded like to me that the next step was for the village and the county and the guild to sit down and have a conversation.
I think that's correct.
Yep.
And as part of that system, there would be an inventory to establish the benchmark as to what flows are there now, so they could talk about designing something that would accommodate any future flows. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then we'll do some follow-up. Once you've gotten that together, we'll have another one of these, likely, kind of a workshop session. We'll hear what you think and see how that overlays on our system. And meanwhile, our system will continue to be developed. Jeffrey, I think we will, in terms of refining flow calculations, we'll continue to include, the customers in the Chimney Rock, in terms of projecting flows from them, so that we can properly size our system. We are the receiving body for that. So we need to have I'm speaking now, to the Lake Lure and TPQ, we have to have a similar one of these workshops or meetings, I think, with the other major outside customer, which is, it's not Rumbling Ball Resort per se, it's Carolina Water Services is the private utility that serves them. But I suspect that they need to be, Rumbling Ball would need to be at the table along with Carolina Water Services. So we'll have to set up a similar workshop and suggest we would invite the same folks from DEQ and others to participate. I hope that you will. It doesn't really involve the county, so you guys get a buy on that one. The village, obviously, is the other side of the lake. So
I'm going to ask Steve, if he had anything to add, please.
I'd like to, I don't know everybody in here, but 30 years ago this month, I started learning about the water and sewer systems and the operation of the hydro plant, because I had the honor of being the town manager here. And in '91, I helped Chimney Rock incorporate, and I decided that real estate was a better venture. But I've continued all these years, as many know, or some know, working with Chimney Rock. And a couple of things, the question I had is for Chimney Rock going forward, and I handle a lot of administrative stuff now, is I know in '89, we did a lot of smoke tests. And we did a lot of work up there in straightening that out. I also know that Tony was involved with another gentleman who was head of the utilities more or less at that time. Up through the 90s, they continued to check that. We also had a way of measuring flow, because back at that time, to meet some of the permit requirements, they needed to know that they were, it was almost needed to get the permit requirements in. They needed to know what the flow was so they could calculate it in that. So there was a mechanism in place to do that. And if we're going to, And I do think the step is for Chimney Rock and Rutherford County to sit down and kind of look at, you know, what the future versus being a part of this is. But either we or the town needs to call Tony, and I think we can get a great deal of information from him about what was last done, because there's those two questions that I would want, is when was the last time that smoking was done, so we can determine where infiltration was coming from. But the second part of that is how did we measure that flow down there behind the Geneva report? Because we were reporting on the documents to state that flow.
Yeah, and I think the other person you talked about was probably Gary.
It is Gary.
Of course, Mark was here at that time too, and he's the water supervisor, I think, is he not? And so Mark may have the records and the information on that passed on from Tony.
Yeah, I just think that for us to have that meeting, either one of us has to determine how to measure that flow.
Yep.
And that would be a good source.
I think that's good input. We will get a hold of them. So there's another little action item. Get a hold of Tony and see what we can pick out of his brain. It's amazing, you know, the historical institutional knowledge that's still floating around. We just can't have a hard time getting our hands on it sometimes and piecing it together. With that, if somebody else has any further inputs or things, I'll go ahead and sort of wrap up in the way of just saying thank you to everyone that's come over here this morning and participated in it. I think it's been a really great, candid, honest, open discussion about where we are and what some of these issues are. I on behalf of the town, just reemphasize the pledge of we want this to be a partnership, a collaborative effort. We want everybody to be on the same side at the end of the day here. I think we're all trying to get to the same end result, a better sewer system serving the gorge for the future, something we leave here as a legacy. That's the way I've looked at this and the dam. These projects will, whether it's 30 years or 40 years, these are things that are going to survive all of us, and it's been a long time coming. This infrastructure is approaching 100 years old in most cases, and so I just applaud everybody for that and the willingness to do something good for the future here. Say thank you very much. And with that, anybody have anything? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Bob Cameron's not here, so. And
I'll
there's a
take
second.
Mr. Cameron.
He said he gave me permission to do that. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita, Ken, and Raleigh. I appreciate it. We'll be back in touch.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.